In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this page that you see here in HTML and CSS. Now, it's not the most beautiful web page out there, but the point is to show you how to create these different elements on your own. So let me show you what your folder structure will look like when you're done. You'll have your main folder called FWD. Within that, you'll have a page called index.html, which we'll be creating. And then you'll have a folder called CSS. Within that, you'll have a page called style.css. That's your external style sheet, and we'll be creating that. And then you'll also have a folder called images. And in there, you'll have screenshots of the 3 content management systems that you reviewed for your Week 2 discussion board post. Go ahead and open up Aptana Studio. For this tutorial, I'm going to use Aptana, but you can use Dreamweaver if you like. The code will be exactly the same. So in Aptana, click Create New File, choose Untitled HTML File, click Finish, and you'll see, just like last week, it gives us this default HTML, but we're going to delete all that because we're going to start from scratch. And so if you need to, go back and review Week 2's tutorial about how to create a basic HTML page because we'll be using a very similar structure here. So first we're going to do our doc type. And in this case, for an HTML5 document, we just type HTML. And then we're going to have our opening HTML tag. And then Aptana puts in the closing tag for us, which is great. You want to always make sure that you do that right away. And then we're going to put our head tag, our closing head tag. And within here, we're going to do our meta tag that identifies the character set, just like we did last week. UTF-8. Close that. And then I'm going to put my title tag. So the title tag is really important because that's what shows up at the very top of the browser window. It's also what shows up on the search engine results pages for this particular page. So we're going to call this Review of Content of Popular Content Management Systems, because the content for this page you're going to take from the Week 2 discussion board post that you did where you reviewed 3 content management systems. Now underneath our closing head tag, we're going to put our opening body tag, and then make sure you have your closing body tag, and then within that we're going to put our header. Again, this is a new element to HTML5, so within that we're going to do an H1 element. The H1 is the topmost heading for the page. So what is the most prominent subject for your page? And it's going to be the same in this case as the title, so I'm just going to copy Review of Popular Content Management Systems, and I'm going to paste that in between the opening and the closing H1 tags. Then underneath our closing header tag, we're going to put our nav tag and our closing nav tag. Remember last week I told you we come back and fill this in, which we're going to do in just a moment. And now let's just go ahead and put in our footer. And then we're going to do our P tag, and we're the same as we did last week. We're just going to put copyright, the copyright symbol, 2011, and just put your name in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. And on your desktop, go ahead and create a folder called FWD. Then within that folder, you're going to name your file index.html. Most home pages are either called index or default. In this case, we're just going to use index. Click Save. It's always a good idea to remember to save as you go along. So now let's go ahead and create our external style sheet so we can get that started. So go to File, New, select Untitled CSS File, and you'll see there it just starts off with the body element to stylize. So let's just go ahead and save this. So go back into your FWD folder that you created. We're going to create a new folder, and we're going to name that CSS. It's a good practice to put all of your style sheets within their own folder. Just makes it easier to maintain and come back, and sometimes you'll see it called CSS, sometimes you'll see it called style or styles. And then within your CSS folder, we're going to call this style.css. You can call it anything you like. For the main style sheet, you'll see it called style or main. So go ahead and click Save. So now that we've saved our external style sheet, let's go back to our HTML document and add a link to our external style sheet so that our HTML page knows where to go to find the styles. So within the head tag, underneath the title tag, type link, href equals, and then the path to it. So in this case it will be to the folder CSS / and then the name of the file, style, .css. Make sure you have your ending quotation mark. I'm going to type rel equals style sheet. This is just more information so that it knows exactly what it is. Type equals text slash CSS. And then finally media equals, and I'm going to choose all. So you see there's different options here like print and screen. So if you wanted to have a style sheet specifically for printing, so it would strip out maybe the background images and some of the colors and things like that, you could create that. In this case, we're just going to choose all. And then I'm going to go ahead and end my tag there. Just go ahead and save this. So I have my link now to my external style sheet. So let's go ahead now and fill in the navigation area. So in this case, we're going to create an unordered list, which is UL. We have our closing UL tag. And within this, we're going to have list items. So these are like bullets. But we're going to see how to stylize this section so that it doesn't actually come out as a bulleted list. But as we look here to see the finished page, it's going to look like this. So our first LI list item will be home. And then we're going to have about, blog, and then contact. And each of these needs to be linked, so we're going to put our link tags around them. So before the word home, I'm going to type href, and I'm going to put the name of the home page, which is index.html, in my quotation mark, in my tag there, and you'll see I get my closing A tag, so I'm just going to cut that and put that after the word home so that the tag surrounds the word home, because that's what I want to be the link. For about, I'm going to put my link tag here, and I'm just going to call it about.html. We're not going to actually create this page, but just so we have something in there. For the blog link, in this case I want you to actually put the link to your blog. So I'm going to put the link to my blog here. So put the link to yours, close that, and let's put our ending A tag at the end of the word blog. And then finally contact, I'm just going to call that contact.html. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Now if you look down here at the bottom of Aptana, you see I have a tab called Safari. So if I click on that, this will give me a preview of what it will look like in Safari. So this is a good way to just get a quick look to see how your page is coming along. Of course you're going to want to check it in all of the 4 browsers, but this will give you a quick preview. So you'll see I have my navigation and it has the bullets because it's an unordered list, but now we're going to see how we can change that style so it looks like the finished product. So down here, click back on source. And now for the UL, we're going to target this. We're going to give it an ID, and we're going to call it nav. You also see this called menu a lot of times. Because remember that this nav element here is new to HTML5, and we want to make sure that older browsers also can be targeted with our style sheets. So we just want to make sure that we also give the UL an ID of nav. So go over to your style.css page. Now we're just going to go ahead and write some styles for the navigation area. So I'm going to target the UL element. I'm going to put a pound sign that is for the ID, and the ID that I called it was nav. I'm going to have my opening curly braces, and then it puts in my closing curly braces there. So I'm going to give it a margin. A margin is just some area around it to give it some spacing. Padding I'm going to set to 0 pixels. The list style, now this is important, I'm going to set that to none because we don't want it to show any bullets or circles or anything like that. Remember, we want that to go horizontally across. And then the width, I'm going to set the width to 525 pixels because I don't want it to stretch too far across the screen. So now I'm going to go to my next style. Again, I'm going to target the UL, the ID nav, and this time I'm going to target the list item, the LI. And I'm going to say display inline. So if you remember from reading your book, there are inline styles and block styles. By default, LIs are block styles, which means that's why you see them one on one line after another. But in this case, we want it to go horizontally across, so I'm going to tell it instead that I want it to be an inline style. Now again, we're going to do our UL, pound nav, LI, and this time we're going to target the A tags, the links. So I'm going to put A, my curly braces, and I'm going to set the text decoration to none. So by default, links are underlined. So we're used to seeing links when we go to different websites and they're underlined. But in this case, because I want to style it a little differently, I'm going to say the text decoration so will be none, so no underlining. Just set some padding around it. So again, these are just things that that you learn as you get more involved in CSS as far as what padding to use and things like that. The 5 pixels is top and bottom, and then the 0 is the left and the right. And then the width, I'm going to set the width within each list item link as 100 pixels. I'm going to set the background color to be 485 E49. This is just a nice kind of greenish color that I picked out. If you go back to that color list that we looked at in week 2, you can pick a color from there if you like. You don't have to use this color. For the text color, I'm going to write color, and I'm going to choose this EEE. And so for some colors, you don't have to use all 6 codes of the hexadecimal. You can just use a shorthand and use 3. I'm going to float it left. I want the text alignment of each link within its section to be center. And then I'm going to put a border in between each one. So I'm going to say border left. I'm going to say it's 1 pixel. It's a solid border. And the color is white. So I can just do 3 Fs or I could do 6 Fs. Make sure you always put that ending semicolon after each style that you're setting there. Okay, so let's go on now. Let's go ahead and save this. Go back to index.html and click on our Safari. And you'll see now it goes across horizontally, has my background color, that green, and it has the text color, which is kind of a little bit of an off-white. We'll come back and we're going to fix this footer here and push that down in just a moment. And you'll see as I hover over, I get my hand as my cursor, which tells me that it is indeed a link. But now I want to tell the user that they are actually hovering over each one. So we're going to target a pseudo class, which is the hover. So click back on source, go back to your style page, and we're going to say UL, nav, LI. We're going to put our A, and this time we're going to put a colon and type hover. So we want to target the hover state. Put our curly braces, and we're going to change the background color to A, 2B, 3A1. It's kind of just a lighter green. Again, choose whatever color you like. And then the color of the text for the links, I'm just going to set that to black. So let's save that. We'll go back to our HTML page. Click on Safari here, and now you'll see as I hover over each one, the background color changes and the text of the link changes, so it just tells the user that they are indeed hovering over each one. Let's go back to source here. So now we've set up our navigation section, so let's go ahead and add some content. So after our closing nav, we're going to put a div tag, and we're going to give this div an ID of main. So IDs, if you remember from the reading and the linen.com tutorials, target a specific item and you can only have one ID per page. So I know I'm only going to have one div called main. Whereas a class, you can have multiple classes with the same name on a page. So now I just want to write a little bit of content here. So this could be the introduction to your review of the content management systems. So I'm just going to go over here, and it can be a few sentences or a paragraph. I'm going to paste that in.